Hi, and welcome to another episode of Spotlight On. I'm your community host, Sean Brown. Today, our guest is Katrina McCombs, Executive Director of the Office of Early Childhood for the school district. Katrina began her education career as a kindergarten teacher. She then went on to become a middle grades literacy teacher, a literacy coach, whole school reform facilitator, and vice principal. She later went on to serve as the principal of Landing Square School until 2011, when she joined the central office in the Office of Early Childhood Education. As always, I came up with these questions myself. Katrina, it's good to be with you.
Nice to be with you.
So let's begin. I'm really used to calling you Ms. McCombs as a board member, but I'm glad we can be so friendly here today for the interview. Earlier I said the positions that you had before, and now that you're Director of Early Childhood, what is your office responsible for?
Okay, so the Office of Early Childhood is responsible for overseeing the preschool education grant or the preschool education aid that the district is given each year. This year we have about $28 million, so that's a very, very huge responsibility and a huge amount to be accountable for. But we're responsible for maintaining the quality of the preschool program, for making sure that there's professional development that's offered to our in-district and private provider teachers, making sure that there's coaching, that there's mentoring going on for our teachers in the classroom, and also providing services to support our families.
And how many students do you serve?
Okay, so currently, this past school year, we served approximately 2,500 students, and I'm excited to state that in this upcoming school year, we're slated to serve 2,600 plus, and that will be the highest number of students that we've served in the program's history. So I'm not just looking at numbers, but what that means is we're able to expand the reach of the early childhood program throughout the city of Camden so that we reach a larger percentage of the universe of pre-K students.
So the term, I first heard the term early learning when I enrolled my first son into school. It wasn't a concept I was familiar with, but what did you say, what is early learning and when does early learning begin?
Early learning is just the study of how our youngest learners learn. However, and I know that sounds weird because I used the part of your question in the answer, but early learning begins in the womb. It really begins when a woman becomes pregnant early on. The foods that she eats, the music she listens to, if she reads to her child in room while the child is there, all of that adds to the brain's development, and that's at a very, very early age. So language acquisition, appreciation for music, appreciation for words, phonics, all of that, letter sounds and names and all of the sentences that go along with our language, it begins in the womb. But early learning is just looking at that, and to me, usually it's called birth to pre-K, but it's also in the womb through pre-K, conception to pre-K. What happens to a child? How are they learning? How is their brain developing? What can we do to support maximized achievement in those areas?
So what services does the district provide for in early learning and for these young first-time students?
We provide many services for our 3- and 4-year-old students and the teachers that come in contact with them and their families. So one of the largest services that we provide is coaching and mentoring. We have a team, a cadre of master teachers who are assigned to classrooms between 15 and 18 preschool classrooms so that they're able to develop a relationship with the teachers, a relationship with the families, and with the students that they service also. Their goal is to make sure that the assessment system that we utilize, the curriculum that is state approved, is implemented with fidelity, but also that we're targeting growth and we're strategically looking at maximizing student growth. Our second group that's critical is our preschool intervention and referral team, and that's the PERT team. What they offer is a preventative approach to over-identification of students for special ed. So if a teacher has children or a child with challenging behaviors, there may be other reasons that the child is acting out. It could be that they're just immature. We take students as early as 3 years old. It could be that they just need a little bit more time in a new environment. So the preschool intervention and referral team uses the positive behavior supports model to help teachers develop classrooms that are emotionally sensitive, as well as academically, rigorous. So it's a balance that's there. We also have social workers and a community parent involvement specialist, and their mission is to focus on the community, the parents. Are we inviting their voice in? We have an education advisory council that is comprised of community members. There are members of the police department that are on that team as well. And it's led by our community parent and involvement specialist, Dr. Cheryl Chavis. And what they do is we make sure that we run everything by them, because we want our parents and our community members to be active stakeholders in the decisions that are made. So our social workers support connecting our parents to those resources in the community that they may need in order to be effective.
So I actually have a lot of follow-up questions to that,
Okay,
but I'll try to
fine.
shrink it to just a few.
Okay.
You mentioned curriculum earlier. The early childhood uses creative curriculum.
That's correct.
Which is one that is approved already by the state of New Jersey, and that's what Camden has picked to be its curriculum.
That's correct.
What should parents know about before sending their children into early childhood education that's managed by the school district? What should parents know about what creative curriculum is? And then how can a parent today prepare his or her baby, infant, toddler for what lessons will be learned once they get to preschool?
Got it. That's an excellent question. Creative curriculum is, like you said, a state-approved curriculum. It's one of many early learning curriculums that are out there. What is special about creative curriculum is that it allows for the students' interests. It's built on the constructivist model. So if a child is interested in, airplanes, projects can be brought into the classroom to maximize or to kind of build on the momentum that's already naturally there. If I'm interested in trains, then if you read me a book about trains, I'm probably going to make a lot of brain connections there with trains. But you can add in writing, you can add in other elements that will help me to get a rounded curriculum there. So creative curriculum allows for that flexibility. It is a curriculum that's often misunderstood by individuals who are not fully educated about what it is. Many times I hear, as I'm going out, visiting sites, talking to parents, that they believe that the curriculum is just play, that the students just play all day. But that's not correct. Developmentally, children at 3 and 4 years old, of course they like to play, but they are learning through meaningful play. And teachers are scaffolding the instruction so that they should still come out knowing their letters. They should still come out knowing how to hold a pencil. Their fine motor skills should be developed, but it's just through a developmentally appropriate means. So they're not just, the term is kill and drill, where you just have a child sit in a chair behind a desk at 3 and 4, which wouldn't be appropriate, and just rote memorization, which is the lowest level of Bloom's taxonomy. They're not going to expand. They're not going to be able to learn how to form questions like you do here. They're not going to be able to challenge. They're just going to comply. So that's a piece of it. The second part of your question is how can parents prepare their children to be successful with this curriculum? Read to them. Just read to them every day. Take 5-10 minutes every day. I'm a working mom, so I understand that it can be difficult when you get home at the end of the day and it's like time to read, but if you can just read to them every day, it will model for them a love for reading. Also, numbers, everyday math. In the kitchen, when parents are cooking, talk to the children about what you're measuring, the amounts that you're measuring. What is it? What does it mean to even measure? Talk about those so that informally children are learning, so that when they get into the classroom, the teachers can reinforce what's already been taught at home. The third thing I would say to parents is just to talk to children and allow them to ask questions. And be patient with them. They're going to have many questions because developmentally, that's a stage where they're very inquisitive, they're learning, they're like sponges absorbing the world. So parents, if they can just allow children, take a little bit of time, let them ask questions, but also answer the questions in more than just 2 or 3 word sentences. Because there's been a lot of research done that compares, especially since we're in the setting in our urban inner city areas where it compares the number of words that or vocabulary that a child is exposed to in a suburban area with the number of words they're exposed to in a setting like ours in Camden. And there are vast differences, and those have been linked to later achievement in literacy and writing. So if parents can just talk, even when they're tired, just still talk, but also let their children talk and tailor the conversations. Ask them questions that are going to make them think, not just what color is this iPad, but why do you think the iPad looks shiny? Or what could it be about the iPad that is interesting? Like, to get them to say more open-ended responses. So reading, math every day, and just talk to them.
That's great. I think that's really good advice. As a parent of two little boys myself, I see how helpful that is and how we need to preach more about the importance of reading to our children and engaging with them. And that's good work. So we are not too far away in this building from ECDC, Early Childhood Development Center. The district has my understanding is that it has its own schools that it operates, but they're also private providers. Are there any big differences between those two, and should a parent look towards one over the other?
Very good question. So there are two different types of settings that preschool children can be educated in our city. In district, which, like you said, ECDC is an example, or in our other family school and elementary school settings where there may be just 2 or 3 pre-K classrooms out of the whole building. Then you have our private provider locations where we work with them. They contract with us and the New Jersey Department of Education for early learning to make sure that the preschool standards are being taught in the classrooms, that the environments are quality environments. So if you're asking, is there a difference between in-district and private provider, the only difference is that they're housed in a school or if they're housed in a private provider settings. I'm often asked, is the quality better in in-district schools versus private providers? And I can tell you this, it is our aim to make sure that the playing field is leveled between in-district and private providers, because it doesn't matter where a child is educated with regard to pre-K. We want to make sure that we're reaching as many preschool students in the city of Camden as possible. So to make sure that both environments are quality, that there is mentoring going on in both is the same. So the expectations are the same for in-district and for private provider settings. Same curriculum, the same assessment systems are used. When the National Institute for Early Learning, NEAR, comes out, they're affiliated with Rutgers University, and they conduct ECHRS, which is the environmental rating system for preschool classrooms, and that's what the state uses to determine whether or not preschools are high quality or not. That's one of the areas that they use. When they come out, they do a random sampling in district, private provider. So there's no difference in the state's eyes. There's no difference in my eyes, because at the end of the day, my child may be at Respond, your child may be at Kramer School, but they should both receive high quality education because they're going to feed into the same system.
All right. I have a few political questions, if you don't mind. So first, how has the state intervention, this new partnership, how's that played into your department?
Okay, that's a good question. Really, to be honest, with early learning and the early childhood program, I've seen many benefits of the state intervention, and I say this because we have been able to have the work that's done in preschool highlighted. We've been included in the Camden Commitment, which is critical because successful learning starts at pre-K. You know, it doesn't start once students get to 12th grade. It's going to start with their orientation towards school, whether they like it or not, way back in pre-K. So the fact that this administration seems to have highlighted those areas, made them more visible in the media, helps, because it gets the word out that, look, we've got a high quality program going on here in Camden. Bring your children, get them in early so that they have a head start, no pun intended, but they have an advanced start so that we can really work on closing the achievement gap. We know that it exists, but let's do it early. The other thing that has been very helpful, the other area that I see the new intervention team being very helpful in is helping to nurture the idea to make early learning not just about pre-K, but about the pre-K through third grade continuum. And that's something that's huge. We're focusing this year on the transition from pre-K to K, but in the subsequent years, we're going to be adding on first and second grade and third. Because waiting until third grade when students take the PARCC assessment to find out whether or not we're on board, it's too late. You know, 3-4 years have passed where we could have been sowing seeds and laying the foundation for our students to really, really have a fair chance at closing that gap. So those are two areas that I think they've been, to me, to this department, it's been very helpful. We have actually expanded the number of staff members that we have working. So we've been interviewing rigorously, trying to select people who are going to really help us to expand this whole idea of what early learning really means. Yeah.
The other question is, you were principal of Landing Square, and you saw the school go through some rough times,
I did.
Especially in the mid-2000s.
I did.
It's between different governors and people putting a lot of attention on how do we get a school in the Landing Square neighborhood, which is in downtown Camden. And now on Broadway there will be a Renaissance school that will be open in the not too distant future. How do you look at the situation now and how far we've come and where we are from what happened with the school collapse back in 2002?
Okay, so that's a very good question, because when you were sharing a little bit of the introduction, all of those positions, being a literacy teacher, being a facilitator, a literacy coach, vice principal, all happened at Landing Square. So I wasn't just an administrator there, but I kind of grew up, in a sense, from a teacher to spreading my wings there. So it's a very special place, holds a special place in my heart. I am glad to see that there will be a building that's constructed for the students who reside in the Landing Square neighborhood, because the families in that neighborhood have, as you alluded to in your question, have been given many promises in the past before by, a couple governors, many other people, that there would be a school built once the original one, there was structural damage found. So I am honestly and sincerely glad to see that that promise will be realized, and that the students who live in that catchment area will have first choice to go to that school. So that is something I'm happy about. The connection with early learning will also, I'm excited about that too, because there's going to be the school is going to begin with a cohort of kindergarten students, and they're going to build the foundation and move up. However, there's also a partnership. The Center for Family Services contracts with the district to have early childhood education classrooms at Head Starts, Mount Calvary, Pine Street, which is in that general neighborhood. So we already have a partnership with them. So it's the same idea of being able to, I guess, feed preschool students into that school who will be able to compete with anyone else. So I see it as another opportunity for me to stay connected with the Landing Square neighborhood, but just in a different way, by being able to oversee the implementation of our program to make sure that the students in that neighborhood also have high quality pre-K, so that when they do go into Kip Cooper, Norcross, if that's the choice that their parents decide to make, then they are ready. So there are no excuses. It won't have anything to do with their early childhood preparation. So I'm excited to see how this is all going to impact our students in the future.
Thank you. So it seems like
You're
the
welcome.
future looks bright for students, for young students in the city.
We have to keep a bright outlook. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. McCombs.
You're welcome.
Katrina.
Thank you.
And thank you for another edition of Spotlight On. It's been a pleasure to do this interview, and I hope that parents and young children watching alike have learned a lot. If you would like to submit questions or suggestions, you can email us at communications@camden.k12.nj.us. Thank you.